Let's do
So
it.
today's daf, although I already recorded, I'll do it round two. So daf
People can
Lamed
compare if you're going to
Tet
say
and
the same
Masechet.
thing.
You never know. Lamed Tet and Masechet Sanhedrin. I'm gonna start. I started last time actually on the bottom, but it sounds like they got up to the top.
Yeah,
And
I got to the top also. So,
right, so we'll do the third line. You know, this that funny case of Avot Achlu Boser is just a great,
yeah.
tall tale. But so the third line, we'll start from there. Amalei Kofer Rabban Gamliel. So in continuing our sidra, right, our order of sort of these agadatas, I guess, of discussions, a kofer, and a lot of different gersot. Some Gemaras have different gersot, Kesar, Rabban Gamliel, which makes a lot more sense as we're going to see in the story. But you know, they changed these a lot for censorship and who this is referring to. But
Hmm.
someone said to Rabban Gamliel, Elohechem ganavu. Your God is a robber. Dichtiv, because it says by the story of Adam and Chava, Vayipol Hashem Elohim tardimal ha'adam. Hashem made Adam sleep into a deep sleep, Vayishan, and then he took his rib basically. So he stole from him. So before Rabban Gamliel gave an answer, Amrle Barte, his daughter, and that's why I often say Kesar, because the Kesar's daughter was often famous. I guess they had education back then. And when he
Imagine.
answered, so the daughter of the Kesar said, Shafke, to Rabban Gamliel, leave him. Da anam mahadrin alei. I can answer my father's, concern. So Amrle, so she said to her father, Tenuli duchas echad. Give me a policeman. I don't know how you translate duchas exactly, but a military person. I need
Yeah, here it says a
a
judge, but I don't think it
judge.
is a
Yeah,
judge.
okay,
Yeah.
a judge is reasonable because Amalei, so her father said, Lamalech, right? Why do you need a duchas, right? A judge or a court or whatever. So she said, because listim bo'alai laila. I was robbed last night. We had listim who came to our house or my room. They stole from me a beautiful pitcher of silver, and they left in its place an ichali kiton shel zahav. They left me this gold kiton. So I need to report a robbery. Melissa, her father said to her, Levi, that seems ideal. These robbers should come every day and take something of lower value and give you something of higher value. So it's the same thing with Adam Harishon. Lo yafa hayalo la Adam Harishon. Wasn't it a good deal for Adam? He lost one rib, let's say, and he got a attendant. Call it a wife here, but that's not what it means literally. Um, he got a whole person. So that was her response. So Amar Allah, so the Kesar or the Kofar, whatever, said to her, it says, but really should be for Rabban Gamliel, Hachi Kamina. No, that wasn't my question, was it a good deal for Adam or not a good deal? My question was, why was it done in secret? Right? Why was there such a trickery involved? El Lishkele Bahadeh. So take it from Adam in front of him. Go to Adam and say, I got a deal to make with you. I'll take a rib and give you back a person. So Amar Le, so Amar Le, so she said to him, the daughter, I to the umsa de bistra, right? Bring me she said to the staff, bring me an umsa de bistra, bring me a chunk of meat, right? A raw piece of blood-driven and raw meat. Aitile, so they brought it to her. Utfe tute bechasha. She put it into the fire, the coals basically. And afikta, and then she took it out once it was cooked. And Amrle, and she said to her father, Echol. So why don't you eat this meat now? It looks delicious. It's roasted. Amrle said to her, easily. It looks disgusting to me because I saw it raw, right? I saw it in front of me, and now it's cooked, and of course it's good. But you don't want to see how the what do they say? Something is made, or the sausage is made. So Amr Lessa, she said to her father, Adam Harishon Nami. It was the same thing with Adam Harishon. If Hashem had taken his piece of him to make chava in front of him, have him isale, it would have been, ma'us to him, would have been disgusting, repulsive to him, and therefore it was better to do it while he was asleep, and that's why Hashem enforced this on him. Okay, that argument. The next one, I don't know where we are, somewhere, third wide line. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Amalei Kofar Rabban Gamliel. Again, the Kofar, and again, they changed it to the Kesar, said to Rabban Gamliel, Yadanu Elahaichu Maika Avid Ve'echen Yativ. We know everything about your God. We've got intelligence. We know what your God does. We know where he sits. We know everything about him. So whatever the challenge was. So before Rabban Gamliel answered him, it's nagid v'itnach. The Kesar, the Kofar, whoever the person was, groaned, and he was moaning. It's nagid v'itnach are like two words for groaning. He was kvetching. Amr Lei, so Rabbi Gamliel said to him, "My high, what's wrong? What are you worried about? What are you thinking about?" Amr Lei, he said, "Well, Ben echad yesh li b'krachei hayam. I have a son who went away, sailed across the sea to a military campaign or to college or something. V'yesh li gaguim alav, and I miss him. I'm having thoughts about my kid. So Rabbi Gamliel then said to him in this girsa, this is a different girsa. Can you tell me where he is? I want to go maybe see him. I want to go visit him or whatever in my trips. Amra, he said, so the Kesar said, Mi adana hechaninu, I don't know where he is. These kids, they go out and they travel and he's in Thailand somewhere, and I
I was
don't
going to say
know.
Nepal.
Whatever. Amrlay, so Rabbi Gamliel said back to the Kesar, look, you don't even know where your kid is. Dika ba'ar liyadat, someone who's human, who's in the land, you can't keep track of them, which obviously today, I don't know, with tracking people is a little different answer. But the Ika is Shemaya Yadata, you know what's going on in Shemayim. What do even I don't need to argue with you about whether you know what Hashem's doing. You clearly don't even know what's happening in the world. Okay, the next one, Amalei, again, Kesar. So I'm going to read it because I think it makes more sense. Amalei Kesar or Kofar Rabban Gamliel. Ketiv, it says in the pasuk in Tehillim that we read, every morning, Monem mispar lekochavim, that you give a number, a number for the stars. So what's the big deal? He said to him. I can also count the stars, right? My Rabute, why is it such a big mala of God? I can also count the stars. So Rabbi Gamliel, again, not yet starting with him and saying, okay, how many stars? Aiti chavushi, he brought these chavushim, which are quinces. I don't know what a quince is. Some kind of fruit, right?
Yeah, quinces.
Yeah, to me, it's not in my fruit group.
Yeah, no, it's not in my either.
So, but anyways, it's the Gemara talks about it all the time. I guess it was something they ate. Shadinu ba'arbela. They put him into an arbela, which is some kind of a basket. The Kamahadalain, he was turning it around. He was, rotating the basket. And Amalei said then to the Kesar, Meninu, so tell me how many quinces are in this basket. Amalei, he said, okay, Ukaminu, stop it, stop moving so I can count them. Amalei said, look, you need me to stop moving the basket. Rakia nami hachi hadra. The sky is also circling around, which is a great insight. It looks static to you because it's so big and you're so far away, but things are constantly moving. You can't count something here without stopping it. You certainly can't count what's in the sky. Ikadamri, some said, Achi Amalei, that in fact the the person said to him, this Kesar said to him, Manili kochva. I counted the stars, so I can tell you. It says, Hashem gave mispar kochavim. I also counted the stars. So before Rabbi Gamliel said to him, "Yeah, how many?" and prove it to me. Amarla, he said to him, "Emily kachich v'shinech kamahavi." How many teeth do you got? How many molars and teeth do you have? So shadi yad l'pumei. So he put his finger into his mouth like any other person would do. The kamani, you start counting your teeth. Amalei said, "Look, you don't even know what's in your mouth. Until you start counting it. Dika berakia yadat, you really know what's going on in the heaven. Clearly, you're not, you're overestimating your skills, and you're just trying to give me a hard time." Okay, continued. Amar lekofa Rabbi Gamliel again, or Kesar to Rabbi Gamliel. Misha bara harim lo bara ruach. He said, look, if you look at the psukim, this pasuk in Amos, it's pretty clear that there's different creators. The one who created the hills didn't create the wind. Shenemar, because it says in the pasuk in Amos, ki hine yotzer harim borei ruach. It uses different verbs, right? You're the creator of heaven, and borei again means creation, but it's a different verb for ruach. So Rabbi Gamliel said back to him, okay, Elamiata gabi Adam, right? If you look at the story of Adam, of course, we talk about this all the time. There's two different verbs used by creation of Adam in Perek Aleph and Perek Bet. Dichtiv vayivra, Hashem lakim et Adam, and it says vayitzar, right? So use the word bara and yotzer. Hachanami mishabar zelo barazel. You're going to claim that two people or two creators made Adam. How could that be? He said to him, Rabbi Gamliel said, Tevach al tevach yeshua ba'adam. Right. Imagine you have a small space in the face of a person. This is the easiest way to understand it. And it's a tefach by a tefach, a centimeter by a centimeter. Shnei nikavim yishbo. You got two different nikavim. Some say the eyes, the ears, right, are next to each other. And what are you claiming? That there's two different creators, that creators? Mishabar zelo barazeh. Shenemar, because if you look at the pasuk in Tehillim, it says Hanoteh ozen halo yishma, the one who created the ear, v'im yotzer ayin halo yabit. So you use the word notea and yotzer, which are different verbs, but clearly different for the eye and the ears, right, which are right next to each other. So is it conceivable to you that means there's two creators of those different parts? So he said, the Kesar said, well, maybe. The answer is yes. Maybe there are two creators or multiple creators, including two, one for the eye and one for the ear. So Rabbi Gamliel responded to him and said, the proof that this is wrong. Again, all of these are very suspect. These arguments, what they're talking about, is Zagarata. But Rabbi Gamliel's answer was, B'shat mita kulan nitbaisu. How can it be that when a person dies, all of the creators agree on the death? Meaning, if there's really a force behind different forces behind people, how can it be that when a person dies, everything dies at once? Why don't you have a situation where, the eyes are still working and the rest of the body is not working? And unfortunately, that doesn't, or fortunately, that doesn't happen. So clearly, you see that there's one, so to speak, force behind an Adam, and of course, that's the force of God. Continues the Gemara. We're going to move on from Rabbi Gamliel now to get to Bavel. Amar le'ahu amgusha la'amemar. And amgusha, I don't really know how you translate that in English, but
The
amgusha,
sorcerer.
yeah, sorcerer. Okay, that's a good word. Often they translate it as these are Zoroastrians, right? But basically the religion in Bavel at that time. So they were said to
Mm.
Amemar,
Mhm.
mi palga li'ila dehormiz. There's a lot of different gersot here about how to read this, but it's not so important. Halfway and up on the body, which is not really, just to be clear, it's not, well, the halfway and up in the body is controlled by the god of Hormuz, and which is the good god of Zoroastrians. Mipalgach the tatoi, and the lower half of the body is Dao Hormuz, right? So the upper half of the body is good, and the lower half of the body is bad, which is a theology. Amarle, so a Maimer said back to him, well, in Cain, I don't understand it. How could they agree? The Hormuz, la burimaya ba'arei. Right? How does a Hormuz allow the top part to throw all their junk out, all their garbage, right? Go to the bathroom through its part, right? How it doesn't make any sense that the bottom half of the body would say to the top half, you drink water, you absorb it, you drink food, and then put out your waste through my part. Okay, Amalei Kesar Rabbi continued another story of the Kesar. Again, I don't know exactly which Kesar this would be in the time of Rabbi Tanchum, but there are those who know history better than me. But the Kesar said to Rabbi Tanchum, I lost the place here.
We need Charlie for that.
It's true. He said to him, look, Ta lahavi kulan la'amachad. I love this Gemara. It's beautiful. Let us all come and be one people, one nation. Let's get over. Let's bury the hatchet. Forget about all the differences between our religions. Let's go to one nation. Amar, so Rabbi Tanchum, of course, this is a trap, as everyone knows. Right? Rabbi Tanchum said, L'chayai, yeah, great. L'chayai means, for sure, let's do it. But Anan de Mahalinan, we Jews have a Brit Milah, which designates us. So we can't undo that. Lo matzina mahavu kavataychu. We can't become like you. Ba'aton, like Yaakov's son said, right? Mahalito vavo kavatan. Why don't you go get a Brit Milah and become like us? Which, of course, is not what the Kesar wanted. He wanted to be like him. So the Kesar said back to him, Amrlay, it's a very smart and clever response. Meimer Shapir Ka'amr, what you said was good. But the rules of the game are that I'm in charge, said the Kesar, not you. And miu kol dezachin the malka l'shtilu bevar. The rule was that whoever beat the king, whoever was zocheh against the king, they throw him into the bevar, the Bavarian, where they had the animals, right? Throw him to
The wild beasts.
the wild beasts. So sorry, Rabbi Tanchum, shadu lebevar. So they threw him into the bevar, but v'lo achlu, like Daniel, right? They didn't eat him. So it seemed like a tremendous miracle. Everyone was really impressed. But of course, there's always a cynic. So Amalei Humina, there was some min there, whoever that was, and he said, "Oh, that's no proof. They're not hungry, right? They're full." So they said, "Okay, let's try you out." Shad Yalela Didei. They threw this min into the bevar, and achlu, he was eaten promptly. Okay, beautiful story. Amalei, the next case, we're back to our Kesar and Rabbi Gamliel. Amalei Kesar the Rabbi Gamliel. Again, Kofar, I keep changing the gear. So, but anyways, you can say Kofar, but it's traditionally changed. So the Kesar said, or Kofar said to Rabbi Gamliel, Amrito, the tradition is that still, yeah, Kol be asara shchinta sharia. Wherever you have 10 people get together, wherever you have a minyan, right? Hashem is shora on that minyan. You have in a city, you could have 20 minyanim or 100 minyanim, right? So anytime there's 10 gathered together to daven, Hashem, the Shechina comes. Ask the Kesar, how many Shechinas are there? How does God go, or what does the Shechina go to all these places? Okay, so that's a little bizarre question, but Karya L'Shamei, Rabbi Gamliel called the attendant, the shamish of the Kesar, and Machle Pakti smacked him in the face. Pakti means the neck, but he hit him on his head. Amalei, so which seemed inappropriate. Amalei, he said to the shamish, right, the shamei, Amai ol shimshon beit the Kesar. You're doing a terrible job. Why'd you let the sun come into the house of the Kesar? Right? Why don't you keep the sun out? The sun is pouring in. It's annoying. It's hot. It's ruining the furniture. why didn't you keep the sun out? So he hit him. I'm like, no, the Shamish said to Rabbi Gamliel, what are you talking about? Shimsha kuli almanachia. The sun is on the whole world. I can't stop the sun from coming to the Kesar's house. It doesn't work that way. And so Rabbi Gamliel said, that's exactly my point. Ma Shimsha, I think of the sun, which is one of Chad min elef alfei ribo shamshe dekame kutchabrichu. It's one of hundreds of thousands of different, implements of shamashim that God has. And it's Naichal Kuli Alma. It has no problem providing sun for the entire world. So Shechinta de Kutchabrichu Achad Kama V'Kama, the Shechina has no problem being everywhere in the world if that's where there are 10 people gathered together to daven. Okay. Another story. Again, these go in a very strange order because we went back and forth from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. But either way, this one is back to Bavel. Said Amin to Rabbi Avo, your God is not serious. Elohichem gachkanhu. Your God is a joker. That's how we usually, gachach is one who guffaws,
Esther.
a jester. Because if you look at the pasuk in the beginning of Yecheskel, Hashem, commands Yecheskel to do all these things that are symbols for what's going to happen to the world. The first Hashem says to Yecheskel, "Shechav al tzidcha smali," lay down on your left side. That's a symbol that you're laying down, whatever. But then two psukim later, Hashem says, "Shechavta al tzidcha yemani," go lay on your right side. So as Hashem's like moving around Yecheskel as a joke, right, left. Anyways, before Rabbi Avo answered, Atahu Talmida, a student came. Amaleni said to him, not related, my time the Shvi'ata. We're learning about Shvi'at, maybe it was that week, I don't know. What's the reason that Hashem wanted the world? What's the reason of the mitzvah of Shemitah? So that was a separate question. But Amar Lu, so Rabbi Avo said, I have an answer that can provide an answer for both of you. Hashta amina lechu milta d'shavet tervaycha. I'll say something that works for both questions. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. The reason for Shemitah is that Hashem said to Bnei Yisrael, Zeru shesh, plant your fields regularly 6 years. Hishmitu shev, I don't want you to work on the 7th year. Kadesha teidu sha'aret shalihi. So you don't make a mistake and start thinking you're working the land, it's your effort, it belongs to you. Remember that there's something above you. There's something that it's my land, says Hashem. So that is why Hashem commanded Shemitah. Of course, as we knew in the Psukim, Heimlo Asukim, the people in Eretz Yisrael did not fulfill Shemitah. Elachatu, they sinned, they planted on Shemitah v'galu, and one of the punishments is that they were kicked off the land. Now, said Rabbi Avo, min hagosha olam, the normal way of the world is you have a melech basar v'dam shesachar la medina, you have a king or a leader, and one country rebels, one province rebels. Imachzarihu, if he's cruel, like probably the Romans were in most cases, or he gets kulam, he would kill the whole place, just wipe it out. Imrachamanu, if he's a kind king, a kind Caesar, or maybe he'll kill half of them. Imrachamyan malei rachamimu, if he is the most compassionate, liberal, open-minded king, then maybe miyasera gedolim shebem b'yisurim. Then instead of killing them, he takes the leaders, who are a symbol for the people, and he gives them and he punishes them publicly. So Afa Kadosh Baruch Hu miyaser Yecheskel. So too, this is what Hashem did. But Israel didn't fulfill Shemitah. They deserved to be killed. But Hashem provided Yisurin for Yecheskel to make him sleep here and then sleep there and move around. Kedei l'marek avonotehem shel Yisrael. It's to clean off and to erase the sins of Bnei Yisrael. Which, of course, is sort of the Psukim in Yecheskel. Talk about Yecheskel's doing this as a kapara for the people. Okay, so that was his answer. Amar Le, we are at the 7 lines or 8 lines in the bottom, the middle of the line. Amar Le humina the Rabbi Avo, another, maybe the same person, but another story of Amin said to Rabbi Avo, it seems to be that Elohechem Kohenhu, that your God, the Jewish God, is a Kohen. Truma. Very strange pasuk, right? When it talks about giving Truma, it says, take it to me, speaking in the terms of Hashem, implying Hashem is the Kohen. Or whatever, well, that's a side point. But Kikavra Moshe, right? Hashem had to bury Moshe because Moshe died alone. No one else was there. God, and then if you went up the next day to the mountain, there was no body there. So clearly Hashem buried Moshe, whatever that means. So now, this is interesting, right? Hashem might have buried Moshe because Hashem was Moshe's father. He could be mitameh to a son. But how did Hashem become tahar after that? But my tavel. How did Hashem become tahar? Again, very, very room for a lot of agadata here. So what are you going to say? Hashem went into the water. I don't know. Hashem went into the mikvah. But Hashem can't fit in the water because the pasuk says in Yeshayahu, you can't measure all the water in the world in Hashem's hand, in his palm. So clearly the water, Hashem does not fit in the water. Amar Leisa Rabbi Avo said, Benura Tavel. God purified in fire. Dichtiv, because it says also in Yeshayahu much later, Ki hinei Hashem ba'esh yavo, God will come in a flame. Says the Gemara, said the min or whoever, Nisaka tiviluta benura. I don't get it. You could go to mikvah in water. You don't go to the mikvah in fire. I'm like, Adrab, no, the contrary. The ikr tfiluta benurahu. Really, the best way to purify is in fire. Of course, if people went into fire every time they had to go to the mikvah, there wouldn't be a lot of people left, right? But it's based on the pasuk which talks about after the war in Midian. It says, Chol Hashem lo yavo ba'esh. Any here we're talking about, obviously it's a different context, but any kli that does not go in fire, tavir b'mayim, you put it in water. So you see that fire is the desired thing, and Hashem went into the fire. Amr le'ahu mina Rabbi Avo, another story, a min said to Rabbi Avo, it says, Mi k'amcha Yisrael goyachad ba'aretz. Right? How great, who is like your nation, Yisrael, one nation in the world. What's so great about the Jewish people? Right? Aton nami arvitu badan, you are always, Hashem mixes together Bnei Yisrael with the other nations. It says in Yeshayahu, Kol hagoyim ka'ayin negdo. All the nations are like nothing in front of Hashem. So what's so special of Bnei Yisrael? You're not so special. Everyone's like nothing. Amalei, so he said to him, mididchu asidohon, your Navi testified about this. It says, of course, by Bilam, who was a non-Jewish Navi, turn the page, Bilam said that you are not counted among the nations. So when it says in Yeshayahu that all the nations are ka'ayin negdo, it doesn't include Klal Yisrael, who are separate. Now, Rabbi Elazar Rami, top line, Rabbi Elazar asked to contradict it. If it says, Tov Hashem lakol, it's a beautiful, beautiful drasha, that Hashem is good to everyone. Echtiv, Tov Hashem l'kovav. Hashem is good to those who are connected to Hashem, who wait for Hashem. How do you reconcile that? Is Hashem good to everyone or only to those who care? So, mashal adam sheishlo pardes. It's a beautiful mashal to a person who has a vineyard or a orchard. Kishum mashke, when you water your orchard, you don't go and put water in this spot before drip irrigation, right? You don't put water in you put water in the whole field. They had flows of water. Mashke kulo. You can't water one part without the rest. And that's like Hashem, giving bracha and caring about the whole world. Because but when you go to your orchard and you start hoeing, you start working on it, you don't go to every single tree. Some trees look like they're not worthwhile or they're low yield. Hashem, or in this case, the orchard owner, whatever you call it, the farmer only hoes or works on the best ones, which is Klal Yisrael. The fikach, now back to our Mishnah finally, right? So our Mishnah said that you should, before we would be ma'ayim, we would sort of intimidate the witness by saying how great people are and everyone's creating yichudi, and if you damage a person, you're damaging a whole world. So the Mishnah said, well, then a person's going to say, why do I need this problem, right? Why don't I just walk out of here and not say anything? And we said, no. You have to tell your testimony because Hashem says, ba'avod risha'im rina, right? When risha'im are punished, that's joy for Hashem. So we need your testimony. So it says in the Gemara, let's darshan some of these psukim of Rina. It says, Vayavar Rina b'machana. This is a very interesting story where Achav was killed in battle. It says that a song went out in the machana. Amrei Achav bar Chanina, Vavod Risha'im Rina. What that's referring to in the pasuk in Tehillim, in Mishlei, of Vavod Risha'im Rina is referring to this pasuk of Vavod Achav ben Amri Rina. There was joy when Achav was killed. Achav, of course, one of the most wicked kings of Bnei Yisrael. It says more, is that true though? Is God happy and Rina when Rishaim get killed? Achtiv, right? There's a couple of psukim. We'll get to Yetziat Mitzrayim in a second. But it says in Divrei Yamim that B'tzeit Lefnei HaChalutz, this was a case where they went out in front of the Chalutz, the army, the weaponized people. And they said, Hodul Hashem kilo olam chasto. Praise Hashem, kilo chasto. Rabbi Yonatan, of course, you notice the pasuk is missing the words kitov. Why did they say Hodul Hashem kitov? Because even though the Jewish people had beat the army of Ammon in that case, right? Hashem was upset, or not happy. Hashem is not happy when your salvation comes by the downfall of others. The Amar of Shmuel bar Nachman Amar of Yonatan, the very famous drasha, it says by Kriyat Yamsuf coming up in a couple of weeks. Look, Harav Zel Zekwa Alayla. No one came near each other all night. Of course, seems to be Mitzrayim and Bnei Yisrael, but the drasha is B'oto Sha'ah. It's referring to the Malachim who come to Hashem to sing Shira. B'oto Sha'ah Bikshu Malachei Hasharet L'mar Shira L'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Amar that night, because Yom Suf was happening, Amar lehen HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Maaseh yadai tovim b'yam v'atem omrim shira lefanai. Right, my creatures, meaning Mitzrayim in this case, are drowning, and you're going to say Shira. Of course, why we don't say Hallel right on Pesach. So you see that Hashem is not happy with Mapalatan Shel Rishayim. So what do you mean by Avod Rishayim Rina with the downfall of Achav in this case? Says Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, it's true Hashem Einosas. Who Einosas? Hashem is not happy. But it's okay if others celebrate. Daikanami dichtiv yasis, right? Lochtiv yasus shmamina. It says yasis, which implies others bring joy to others, not that Hashem is happy. So you see that Bavod Rishaim, the Rina refers to others will rejoice when Rishaim are killed. And while we're on the story of Achav,
That was a big thing during the war. This war.
in many, many wars, it's true, every war, right? But certainly this one we're living through. So anyways, the pasuk, we go back now to Achav. It says by Achav that when he died, he was killed in his chariot, and it says they washed, the Merkava had blood in it, and they washed off the blood, and the dogs were melakik, the blood, which of course we're going to see more about that in a second. And it continues and says, Vazonot Rachatsu, and the zonot, the prostitutes, washed in the blood of Achav. So the question is, what does that mean? What's zonot? What was going on? Amar Rebbe Elazar, it doesn't actually mean zonot. It means chezionot. Change the hey to a chet. The dream, the visions, meaning the nivuah. It's the marek shtei chezionot. This purifies, this cleanses, this fulfills two nivuot. Achat shel Michayo v'achat shel Eliyahu. Michayo and Eliyahu both said that Achav was going to be killed. Michayo ktiv im shov tashiv b'shalom lidiber Hashem bi. If you return from this war of peace, Hashem didn't talk to me. And of course, Hashem did talk to him, and Achav was killed and did not return from the war. The Yochtiv, of course, by Eliyahu, which is the story of Navot, right, when he stole the vineyard from Navot. Eliyahu said, Navot, in the place where the dogs are licking up the blood of Navot who you killed, they're going to lick up your blood. And this killing of Achav fulfilled that prophecy. Rava says, no, in fact, Zonot Mamash, it actually means that there were prostitutes on his chariot, not people, but there were carvings. Achav ish mitsunanhaya. Achav literally means he's a cold person, or I guess not, I don't know, maybe he was overstimulated and he couldn't be activated. Asalo Izevel shtei tzurei zonot merkavto. His wife Izevel, in order to get him riled up, would made pictures of carvings, I guess, of zonot on his merkava. That's what he would look at, and he would get warmed up, so to speak. But when he died, his blood, was splattered all over that. It says by the killing of the pasuk before of Achav, Ish mashach b'keshet l'tumo. A person pulled his keshet, his bow and arrow, lit tumo. Now, lit tumo is a funny word to use. Lit tumo usually means something you do accidentally, right? Vayaken, it killed Achav. So Rabbi Elazar says, yeah, that's exactly what it means. Lafit tumo. That basically they weren't even trying to kill Achav. They were just shooting randomly, and they killed Achav. Rava says no. It really means it's the same. Litumo is litamim, is to be complete, to finish the story of Shtei Chezionot, of the two prophecies. Again, what we just said before, Achat shel Michayo, Achat shel Eliyahu, one of Michayo and one of Eliyahu. Now, again, the Gemara has no problem in Sanhedrin of getting distracted by its own distractions. Right? We are now the third wine line. While we're on the topic of Achav, which of course has nothing to do with our Mishnah or Gemara, we get to the next topic of Achav, which no one would want to miss, which is the story of Ovadia. Right? Because it says when Achav went out to look for Eliyahu, it says Vayikra Achav el Ovadia asher al habayit. Achav called Ovadia, who was in charge of his house. He was his chief of staff, right? And the pasuk continues and says Ovadia haya yorei et Hashem ma'od. Ovadia was very God-fearing. Says Gemara, is Achav saying that? Like, what's the context there? Ma'ikam Kra. What is the pasuk referring to? So Amar Yitzchak, no, what's saying is the following: Amarle that Achav had tainat on Ovadia. He said, "Tiv, by Yaakov it says when Yaakov went to Lavan, Nichashti, it says I saw the signs, I understood things. Vayivarchei Hashem biglalecha, and Hashem blessed my house because of you." Right? That's what Lavan says. And by Yosef, it says the same thing. That the house of the Mitzri was blessed because of Yosef. So I don't understand. You, supposedly Ovadia, you're the top guy in yeshiva, right? You're the big righteous person. I brought you into work in my house. Beita dahu gavra lo havi mivrich. But the house of that person, which is the way you always refer to yourself, is not blessed. It's not raining. We don't have food. Remember, there was a big famine. Maybe you're not all you're cracked up to be. Maybe you don't really fear God. You're not like Yaakov and Yitzchak and Yosef. So because Achav said that, Yatzda Batkov Amra, no. Ovadia Hayare et Hashem Od. The problem's not Ovadia. Ovadia worships God, fears God a lot. The problem is in the house of Achav, which is not prepared for a bracha, because you are worse, presumably, than Lavan and even Potiphar in this case. Amar Rabbi Abba, says Rabbi Abba to reinforce that point. Gadol Shnemer Bavadia Yoter Shnemer Avraham. It says greater praise by Ovadia than by Avram, because by Avram it says that Avram is Yorei Hashem. Remember, Hashem says, "I know Atah Yadati Ki Yorei Elohim Ata," right? But it doesn't say the word Me'od. Avram lo chtiv Me'od. Ovadia chtiv Yorei Elohim Me'od. So Ovadia is said, doesn't mean he was greater, but it's what's said is greater than by Avraham. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, says Rabbi Yitzchak, interesting question. Why was Ovadia zocha to be a Navi? Now, some wonder why not. Everyone could be a Navi. Some point out it's just a question, but also Ovadia, as we're going to see in a second, was, as Rashi points out, he was a ger, right? And generally, we would think that a person who's a ger is not as ro'oi for Nevi'ut than somebody who was born a Jew. So why was Ovadia zocha to Nevi'ut? Remember, Ovadia did this great act earlier on when Izevah was killing all the Nevi'ei Hashem, and he hid 100 Nevi'im in a cave. When Izevah was wiping out, was destroying the Nevi'im of Hashem, Ovadia took 100 Nevi'im, he hid them, 50 right? He hid 50 in each cave, and he fed them with food. Since while we're on the point of good getting distracted, why did he hide 50 in a cave? Right? Why didn't he put them all together? I'm Rabbi Lazar because he learned from Yaakov. Yaakov Lamad. Shenemar as Yaakov, of course, when Esav was coming, he split up his camp and he said, if Esav comes and kills one, the other one will be remaining. So Avadia did the same thing. He thought that Esav was coming to kill them, which she was in her case, and he thought, I'll hide them in different places. Rabbi Avo says, well, you don't always have to have a deep meaning for everything. Maybe it was that was the capacity, right? It's hard to get more than 50 people in a cave. You gotta have a really big cave. So that's why I put 50. Anyways, back to Ovadia, and again, we're getting distracted from our distractions. There's of course, a book in a sefer in Trei Asar of Ovadia, which is a very short one, and it starts off by saying, Chazon Ovadio. This is the vision of Ovadia. Hashem Elohim le'edom. Hashem said to Edom, and then of course Ovadia gives a prophecy about how Edom is going to be destroyed and they're going to be punished. Says the Gemara, Maishna Ovadia le'edom. Why is Ovadia the Navi who's chosen to say a nevuah to Edom? Rabbi Yitzchak. Well, that's because Ovadia had a unique perspective on Esav, on Edom. Because Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, look, said God, Yovo Ovadia hadar ben shnei rishaim. Ovadia lived and worked and was the chief of staff among the house of Achav and Izevah, who were two bona fide Rishaim in the Tanakh. Right? It's hard to find two people who are thought of as being both greater and more evil than those two. But he was not changed by their actions. He remained true to Hashem. And he should say in Nevuah, V'yinavel Esav harasha shadar ben shnei tzadikim. Esav grew up among Yitzchak and Rivka, two great people, but he did not learn from them. And so that is sort of the indictment of Esav from Ovadia. Amar Ephraim Miksha'ah, Talmidosh Rabbi Meir, Mishum Rabbi Meir, Ephraim Miksha'ah, who was a student of Rabbi Meir, said in the name of Rabbi Meir that no, in fact, Ovadia was a convert from Edom. Ovadia ger Adomihaya. Ovadia, in fact, was a convert of Edom. And this is what people always say, that minei ubei ibani zelbar narga, that from within your own house, basically, the forest is going to be minei ubei iba, meaning from within the forest, nezel bei narga, you're going to get the axe, the handle of the axe to cut down the trees, which is that it's always most painful when the enemies come from within, which is true, right? And so Edom was basically undercut by the person who came from Edom, who was a convert from that people. Continues the Gemara, we're almost at the end of this daf. Where are we? Vayach et Moav, like 8 lines, 10 lines from the bottom. It says by, again, we'll see why this story is relevant. It says by David that he killed Moav. Vayimadidem bechevel hashkev otam artzi. He cut them down. He measured with a rope the ones he had killed, and he made them lie down on the ground, right? And he killed them. Amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum mishum bar Yochai handam yinchi. This is what people say that David, right? Remember, who came from Moab because his great grandmother Ruth was from Moab, ended up killing Moab. And Hanadam Rinchi, it's the same statement that we just had. Mineu Beiba Lezabon Narga. From within the forest is where you get the axe that's going to shoot the handle of the axe that's going to cut it down. Kiata Rav Dimi Amar Rav Dimi had another statement, another pitgam of saying this, which is Yorech mitocho misrachat, that a yerech, a thigh of an animal or a piece of meat, rots from the inside, meaning it's not from the outside that things come. I guess this is how they viewed infection or bugs. It's from the inside, that the inside gets rotten, and that's what makes it the worst. Right? The outside, you could cut off the mold, I guess, but you can't get from the inside. Back to again, we're so distracted here.
Yeah.
At the Noah Bechar, it's hard to even figure out the context. This is talking about when they attacked Moab. It says that the king of Moab took his Benoah Bechar, his firstborn son, Asher Yimloch Tachtav, who was going to be the king in front of him, and he brought him as a sacrifice. He killed the son on the wall. This was when the Bnei Yisrael were fighting them. So Rav Shmuel Chanamar L'Shem Shamayim, he did it because he wanted to do it for Hashem. Basically, mistakenly, of course, God does not want you to slaughter your son, but he wanted to show that he was not fighting with Hashem. So he took this most valuable thing and he slaughtered it. Chanamar, no, he did it for Avodah Zarah because he thought Avodah Zarah would help him win the war. Hashem Avodah Zarah. So it says where Abishlam Alamanda Amar L'Shem Shamayim. We don't know which one, Rav or Shmuel. But if you say it was Hashem Shamayim, then I understand that the next pasuk says, Vahi Ketzef Gadol Yisrael. There was a lot of anger from Hashem on Bnei Yisrael because you could see that, Hashem could say to Bnei Yisrael, you're not worshiping me. This non-Jew is giving their most precious thing to worship me. It makes you look bad. If the king of Moab did it for idol worship, then why does that lead to Ketzef of Bnei Yisrael? Vahi Ketzef Gadol of Bnei Yisrael. Right? Because it's showing that he's worshiping idols. It doesn't, obviously Bnei Yisrael was doing it too, but it doesn't, why does that lead to anger? It says, no, in fact, that's if you look at the Psukim, Kid Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Rami, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi asked a contradiction in Psukim in Yecheskel. It says in Yecheskel, Chtiv, Uchemishpat hagoyim asher sevivotechem lo asitem. Right? Yecheskel is giving criticism to Bnei Yisrael. They didn't do the rules like the non-Jews around them. But then later in Yecheskel Chdiv in Perek Yud Aleph it says, they did the things around them. So what's the point? Is Yecheskel angry is Hashem angry through Yecheskel because they acted like the non-Jews, or they didn't act like the non-Jews? And the answer is the Gemara, of course. The answer is that they did both bad. The things that are appropriate, the proper social things and justice and charity that the non-Jews did, they didn't do. They didn't act in the good way. The things that the non-Jews did that were wrong, like avodah zarah and murder, whatever, asitem. So that was Yecheskel was saying that you acted some ways like the non-Jews in the bad ways, and you didn't act like them in the good ways. And so here too is the criticism that when Hashem basically saw the non-Jew worshipped avodah zarah, that was a reminder that the Jews were doing the same thing, and that Hashem was angry at them because of that. Continues the story by Yisume Alav. It says they left from the king of Moab. Vayashuvu la'aretz. They went back to the land. It doesn't say to Eretz Yisrael. So what does that refer to? At that time, Yerdu Soneim Shel Yisrael Madriga Tachtona. La'aretz means they went not to the land but to the earth. They were at the lowest possible point. They were like the earth, and they were because Hashem had rejected them. And finally, again, we're back now to what we said earlier, but this is in the context of Ad Me'od that we said by Ovadia. It says Hanara Yafeh Ad Me'od. This is a pasuk by what's her name? By David, right? We just read it in the Haftorah, right? It says that the woman they brought for him to warm him up, the chamlo to warm him up, was beautiful Ad Me'od. Amar B'Chanina Rav Papa. The word Ad Me'od means she was till Me'od, meaning she was approaching the one who was beautiful, which it says Me'od, which is Sarah. Adayin lo hagiya lechatzi yofio shel Sarah tichtiv ad Me'od v'lo Me'od b'chlal. Right? It says by Sarah she was Yafeh Me'od, So this this whatever her name was beautiful ad me'od, but not as beautiful as Sarah, and so that is the way we're dashing the word ad me'od, right? By Sarah it says yafehi me'od. So she
Yeah,
was
that's referring to Avishag.
Avishag, right? Avishag Ashinamitru came from David. So, anyways, that is she was beautiful, but that's what ad me'od means, that she was up to, she was approaching or up to half the beauty of Sarah. Hadran alach echad mitinei mamanot. Bli neder, and God willing, tomorrow we will continue and get back to our topic of
Wow,
Sanhedrin.
this
Uh,
was so weird.
yeah, the Sanhedrin's like this. It's beautiful, but it just gets distracted and then distracted and distracted and distracted and keeps
I'm
going.
wondering at which time during the year they wrote this. Might have been Purim or something like that.
It's interesting. So we'll learn tomorrow, I think in the evening.
Yeah,
See who makes it. I'll add it on the WhatsApp, but I'll
I
hopefully make
mean, yeah, you put it on the WhatsApp. I don't know. Robert said he couldn't. The other guy, whatever his name was, like disappeared.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. We'll have to see. We'll follow up. Who knows? Okay. Well, God willing, we'll learn tomorrow. Shavua tov, Miriam.
Shavua tov. Thank you, Ellie.
Good night.
Right.